This week's guest is Nicole Bilzerian. Nicole started a career at Jive Records doing marketing for Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake. After leaving Jive, she went to Interscope Records, guiding projects by J. Cole, DaBaby, Ray Shremmerd, and Juice WRLD. Nicole then served as executive vice president at Geffen Records, where she played a pivotal role in launching Olivia Rodrigo's chart-topping album Sour, which won a Grammy. She is now the founder of 81B, a company dedicated to empowering creatives with operational support. Since its launch in 2023, 81B has worked with Nickelodeon, Rebel Music, and Gamma. Let's take a look inside her journey on this week's episode of Mixed and Mastered. Welcome to Mixed and Mastered, the podcast where the stories of the music industry come to life. I'm Jeffrey Sledge, bringing you real conversations with the people who have shaped the sound of music. We're pulling back the curtain on what it takes to make it in the music business. These are the stories you won't hear anywhere else, told by the people who live them. This is Mixed and Mastered. Hello, this is Mixed and Mastered with an old co-worker of mine who's become a big maka. Nicole Bilzerian. How are you, Nicole?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, man.
Thanks for asking me to do this.
Of course. I mean, so we haven't seen each other in quite a while, but I've been watching, since you moved to California, I've just been watching you grow up and up and up and up. And I'm like, oh man, Nicole's killing it out there, and I'm real proud of you, but everything that you've done that we'll discuss, but I'm really proud of you because seeing you from the young girl at Jive to, what you, and you're still young. I'm not trying to call you like old, but saying, but
no,
like,
it's all right. It's all right.
Become this big executive, So let's get started from the beginning. So you grew up in Massachusetts.
I did. Worcester, Mass.
Now, how is that in Boston? I don't know geography of Boston, of Massachusetts. Well, this one now?
It's central Mass. So it's like 45, 50 minutes outside of Boston.
Okay. Is there a college there or something? I know the name.
Yeah, there's a ton of colleges in Worcester, actually. I think, I don't know, it might be like 8 or 9, literally.
Okay, yeah, that's why I know the name, because I definitely have heard the name before. And after that, where'd you go to college?
I went to Fordham. That's how I ended up in New York. I was in the Bronx.
That's how you did it. You was in the Bronx. Yeah. So how'd you end up at Fordham? Like, how'd you pick Fordham instead of UMass or, Harvard or Boston College or one of those?
It's crazy. When I was in high school, I was an athlete. I played softball, and I had an attitude at the time that I was only going to go to schools that were recruiting me. And I went on all of my recruiting visits, and they were all great schools. But like none of them really kind of spoke to me. So last minute, one of my aunts went to Fordham. I said to my parents, can we just go check out this school in New York? And we went, and I just fell in love with the campus. I was like, oh, this is amazing. It's in the Bronx. It's close proximity to the city. I was like, I'll just walk on. So I, had a meeting with the coach at the time. She agreed to let me, walk onto the team. And so Fordham was a last minute decision for me, but the best decision I could have made. I'm so glad I went there.
Wow. Where'd you get your interest in music? Where'd that come from? Or was it just an internship that turned into music?
I've been interested in music. Whether it was just like listening to my parents play music around the house or just, I honestly don't know where it came from, but since a young age, I was really interested in music. My first concert was Belle Biv DeVoe.
Okay. Yeah. The homies.
Yeah. And I just loved music, but I never knew that you could have a career in music unless you were the artist. So I got an internship when I was in college at RCA Records, and that opened my eyes to the fact that you could work in music but not have to sing or rap or dance. And that from that moment on, I was like, okay, now this is where I want to be. I changed everything.
Okay. So who'd you intern for at RCA? What were you doing in your internship?
So my first internship was for a woman by the name of Hannah Serbu, who was the executive assistant to Bob Jameson, who was running the company at the time.
Yep, yep.
And that internship or that assignment was pure luck in the best way, because interning for the executive assistant to the person running the company, you get to see everything that's going on in the company. So that was just such a privilege to be like, oh my God, there's all these departments and these people do different things. And I was so naive to how the whole process worked.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the best first internship I could have had. And then I did another semester in their marketing department.
Okay. And that's how
Yeah.
you got into the marketing thing.
Yeah.
So how'd you get to Jive?
So I, like a lot of college students, left college looking for a job. And I had an arrangement with my grandparents where they agreed for my graduation gift, they would pay 3 months of rent in New York.
Ooh.
And I would have to find a job over the summer or I'd have to move back home. So for those 3 months, I was a temp. I got hooked up with a temp agency and I was doing just kind of temp work at different labels. And I didn't get a full-time job in August, so I moved home for 2 months, and then I got a call back. I was miserable. I was. But so then I got a call back from the temp agency that November, and they said, hey, if you can come back to New York, we've got a temp position that we think is going to become permanent, if you want it. I said, yes, great. So I ended up moving back to New York. And I temped a little bit again at Jive, actually, like as reception, or that's how I met Allison Joyce. I was helping A&R, and
Hi,
then
Allison.
yeah, and then the full-time assistant position opened up because the assistant for the head of marketing and special projects at the time, Julia, her assistant had gotten promoted, so she needed a new assistant. So January, 3 months later, I got the full-time assistant gig.
And here that was the start.
That was the start.
Sidebar, because I never asked you this. How did you get to Lenox Terrace? How did you move to Harlem? I never asked you that. By the way, folks, we shared the same shoe store.
Yes.
We had the same shoe man.
Yes. I had a lot of shoes repaired walking around those streets.
Absolutely.
So I got to Harlem because so I was in the Bronx for 2 years post college, right?
Okay.
Had a roommate and was making that commute down, on the 1 or the 9 train down to 25th Street. And then I made just enough money to get closer to downtown. So I was able to find a studio in Harlem, actually on 130th between Adam Clayton and Lenox.
Okay.
4th floor walk up, but I was by myself, right? So I did that for 2 years, and then I finally had like a little bit of money to get in an elevator building, which is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
So that's when I moved over to 135th and 5th and Lenox Terrace.
Okay. Cool. So wait, so you started working with Julia. How was your initial experience at Jive? Like, what was it kind of like? Was it similar to RCA? Because I don't really quite remember what RCA was back then, or was it very different? Like, what kind of turned you on about wanting to do this, like really do this and turn it into a career?
I remember it being definitely a bit different. RCA was, a very, from what I remember at the time as an intern, just like very organized, buttoned up, label in New York City.
Yeah.
And Jive was just more, it was smaller. It was more, I feel like the term family is just so overused, but it really did feel like that.
It really was, though. It really was.
We were just, it was scrappy. It was just like, it was a good time, but it was work. And I loved it. Like from the minute I went there, I was like, this is what I'm going to do for my career, for sure.
Yeah. It was definitely a family environment. Like you said, it is overused term, but I can say I worked at Atlantic Records later on. And I was like, wow, this is like, I really realized how unique of a situation Jive was when I went to Atlantic.
Yeah.
And that's not dogging Atlantic, but it was just like, wow, it wasn't really family. It was just like more like corporate, so it was special. So tell me a couple of the projects you worked on at Jive.
So because I got really lucky with assisting the head of the department, I kind of like got to see a lot of the projects that were just happening at the label at the time. But when I kind of got a little bit more responsibility and started working my own projects, it was the height of like Britney and R. Kelly and
Pop
Sierra
stuff.
days,
Yeah,
right? So I
yeah,
think, and I'm terrible with dates, but if I remember, it was like the Sierra Evolution album. Over time, as I kind of came up, I did Robert's Trapped in the Closet and Double Up album,
yeah,
one of Britney's albums.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy time
So wait,
at that
wait.
time.
Before we move forward, I don't know if crazy story is the right term because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But do you have any trapped in the closet stories about working the record, or you just kind of work the record?
No, I just kind of worked the record. I mean, it was such a at the time it was such a bizarre thing. Like, what is this? You know? So there was definitely nuances that came along with that. But no, I truly don't have any weird stories.
Yeah, that's what I tell people all the time when they ask me about Robert. I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't really got no wish. I'm sorry, I wasn't no like 11-year-old girls walking around the office. Like he was a
yeah,
amazing artist, and he kept putting out amazing records, and that's pretty much all I could tell you, man.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so after the Jive thing, explain how you got to Interscope in California.
So back to the family piece of it. So I was at Jive, and then, as you know, we had merged with RCA, and we became Jive RCA, and we moved into the 550 Madison building, and
Mm-hmm.
so I had been there through the merger for about 9, 10 years. And like most people, you know, you love what you do, but you feel underpaid, overworked. And I kept being like, oh, I gotta leave, I gotta leave. Mark Flaherty called me, who
Mark
used to work
Flaherty,
at Jive,
great
but
dude,
he
great
had
dude,
made
great dude.
great dude. He had left and gone and done other things and then made his way to LA to Interscope. And he called me and he said, hey, you know, I kind of know what they're paying you. I can pay you more, but you got to move to California. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I love New York. He's like, just come for, you know, come for an interview and like then you make a decision. I was like, all right, fine. So flew to LA. I met with him. I met with Steve Berman, and I still like wasn't convinced because I was like, I love New York. I just love New York
Mm-hmm.
so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they made me an offer that I honestly couldn't refuse. And I remember talking to Mark Pitts about it. And because at the time I was working like some developing artists that I really had passion for, like a Jacob Lattimore, right? Who I still, you know, I'm still good friends with Tish to this day.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know. And Mark was like, get your money. And I was like,
That was his famous term. Get your money. Get your money. Get your money. You got to get your money.
and I was like, okay, fine, but I'm gonna come back. I was like, I'm only gonna go for 3 years, and then I'm gonna come back to New York. So I did. I ended up going to Interscope as marketing director. They made me a great offer, and so I moved to LA.
So, okay, we'll deal with a couple things, but tell me the differences between Jive and working at Interscope. You know, it's a totally different
Yeah, totally
culture.
different.
Totally different.
Well, there was a lot of differences, I think, label wise, but also city wise. For example, you know, in New York, especially at Jive, we were in the office sun up to sundown. We all went out after work. It was like you literally like lived there. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first got to LA and I would go to the office and someone would say like it'd be like 1 o'clock and they'd be like, all right, you know, I've got a meeting, I'll see you tomorrow. And I'm like,
1 o'clock in the
but
afternoon?
yeah. And I'm like, oh, you're not coming back to the office? And they're like, no, like, you know, with traffic and no, like, no, I'll see you tomorrow. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is a different city. You know, people aren't living in the office. It's kind of come and go. And so that was a difference.
Yeah, Jive, if you did that, your phone would be blowing up like
Yeah,
from like all the rest of the day. Like, when are you coming back? When are you coming back?
totally. I mean, but now having lived here for a long time, I get it. Like traffic is crazy. It is geographically spread out. Like I get it
Yeah,
now, but at the
yeah.
time I did not understand it. And you know, it was definitely Jive was relaxed, but then going through RCA, which is a little bit more buttoned up, you kind of got a little bit more corporate culture. And then going to
Mm-hmm.
Interscope, I felt like was definitely a lot of creative. I mean, I got to Interscope right as Jimmy was leaving and John Janik was taking over. So like I
Okay.
got the tail end of Jimmy and then I got, you know, John coming in. So it was a transitional time that way, but it was definitely a creative environment. You knew that coming in. You know, I started talking about budgets. Everyone was like, yeah, like talk to us later. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
creative.
yeah. I've never met Janik. I've heard great things about him, but I've never met him. What was he like to work for?
He is super smart. You know, different personality than Barry, but reminded me a lot of him in the sense of reads every chart, reads every article, will ask you about it. Just really, really smart,
Mm-hmm.
smart guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So what acts did you start working on when you got there?
So again, I was very fortunate with my timing because I got to Interscope in February of 2013. It was right when we were launching Robin Thicke Blurred Lines.
Wow.
So I worked Robin, that record and that album. I did Aloe Black, which again
Big
at that
record.
point was having a huge moment and is still
Yeah.
incredible,
Big
incredible artist.
record.
And Maroon 5, I worked the 5 album.
Wow.
I did Fergie, one album. So when I first got there, again, my timing, I could not have planned it any better. I just got really fortunate with these big artists that were releasing projects at the time, and they were global
Uh-huh.
projects. So I got to work with all of the territories and really learn more about the global space.
Yeah, yeah, which is very different. It's just
Yeah.
like I remember at Jive, Clive sent me to England and to Sweden, and like, you get to see like, wow, it's like this. It's a really big world out there. You kind
Yeah.
of think in United States, but then you go to these other territories, and you're like, oh, they do things different, and there's a whole kind of different system in place in other places.
Yeah.
It's not homogenized as I kind of thought it was.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wait, before you move on, um, the Blurred Lines lawsuit.
Yes.
I thought Pharrell got hosed.
Hmm.
What were your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I don't really know what my thoughts on it were because I was so caught up kind of in it. I mean, I got deposed and had to testify,
Oh wow,
but only to speak about the marketing campaign
yeah.
specifically, right? And all the things that we did and how much money we had spent to make the song a success rather than the song being a success because of a sample or an interpolation.
Mm,
So, to be honest, I don't know. I mean, obviously unfortunate for Robin and for Pharrell, and it definitely is a fine line. It's
yeah,
definitely a fine line when you start talking about these things. But yeah, that's a tough one.
it was a tough one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I saw you were also moving forward. You ended up working with J. Cole and Sheck West and Juice World,
Yeah,
the Baby and Ray Shrem and Olivia Rodrigo, who we'll get to in a minute.
yeah,
I remember I went to Travis Scott's concert tour that Sheck West opened that for.
yeah,
It was the Astro World tour,
yeah,
and I went in New York, and I remember I knew the Sheck West record was big. I knew it was big. I was in New York. I knew it was big, but when he came out and did that song, and what was it? The little drop was like fuck shit. It was something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Like the whole guard. I was like, oh, okay, this is
yeah,
bigger than I thought it was. This is like a big thing.
yeah.
How was it working with him and working with Cole and those guys and Juice World?
I mean, again, I look at like kind of my career so far and just like what moments of time I've had. And that particular time was really great to be a part of because Joey Manda had just come also into Interscope and we were
Mm-hmm.
really transitioning or building out the kind of hip hop, rap, R&B artists at the label. Obviously
Okay,
there were the icons, right? Like there were like the Eminem, 50, like
Dr.
all of,
Dre and yeah.
yes. But at the time, there weren't that many developing artists. So it was really a priority to bring in label partners and developing artists to really build up. And over that time, and about, I don't know, like a 6 year time span, that's what we did. And a lot of credit to the entire team because there were so many artists that we were working at the time. So as you mentioned, J. Cole and Dreamville, we worked closely with. They're amazing. They're just good people. I mean,
Yeah, I haven't met them, but I've heard they're great people.
really great people. Actually, fun fact, fast forward. So Cole just did the 10th anniversary show at
Yep,
MSG,
yep.
and I happened to be in New York in December for work, and I had my son with me, and I brought him. So my son's first concert is J. Cole.
At the Garden, that's dope. That's dope. That's dope.
but yeah, that was a great moment in time. They're really great people to work with. Working with Grade A, with Bibby and Pete on Juice World was really great. Those guys are just, you know, they're forward thinking and innovative. Like, I know, like, all the content that was made around Juice World was very thought out by them and by the team. So that was a good time. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of moments within that 6-year period for
I
sure.
bet. Yeah, in reading about it, it felt like you were just like on just rolling. It was like one
Yeah.
hit after another, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And you put out one of my favorite albums, the first Ray Shrim album.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like I remember listening to that. I was thinking in the gym or something, and I put it on, and I like the singles, but I put the album on. I was like, this is some other shit. Like, I still listen to the album sometime to today. That's like a
Yeah.
great project, you know.
Yeah, that album was actually a lot of fun. And I just look back, this is kind of off on a tangent, but I look back, and when you're in like the release of a record, any record, right? There's things that you just find so important. And I just look back on like some of the conversations that I had with Mike Will at the time, and I'm just like, why did we care so, like, there was just like certain things, like that was a lot of fun to work that project. A lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet, because they had that youthful energy, and it was Atlanta, and it was just like a whole movement, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I liked them a lot. So tell me how you got to now Olivia Rodrigo. That was Geffen, or that was still Interscope?
That was Geffen.
Okay, so tell me about that transition to go to Geffen, because you were. I mean, let's leaving out some details, which is when you got to Interscope, you started, then you rose up the ranks. You were like a senior
Yeah.
vice president. Like, you were
Yeah.
like a big wig. You know, it wasn't like you were just, and no
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
disrespect, but you weren't just like a product manager. You were like a really doing it. So tell me about. I want to hear about that too. Like, I think people don't understand how to kind of rise in corporate America, and how the stuff you got to do to kind of
Yeah.
weave through that and get to that high level.
Yeah. So I just from start to finish, well, I'm not finished. So start to now, let's say.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, you're not
I went
finished.
from
You're not far from
I'm not
finished.
finished yet. So, I started as an intern, then I became an assistant, and then I think I got bumped up to coordinator, and then I was like a junior product manager, and then I got to Interscope and I was a product manager or marketing director. We kind of interchanged the term, I suppose. And then again, because of the timing and just a lot of other factors that played into it, I was able to get promoted to the head of urban marketing. So that was in the height of when we were really focused on the developing artists and just trying to like build out that team. So it wasn't just me. There was, we had a small team to start. And over time, over those 6 years, it grew, and, slowly but surely we were able to get more headcount and really bring in people to help support the amount of artists that we had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I worked my way up in the sense of like all the things you would expect. You have to work hard. You have to be, ready for the opportunity when it comes. You have to be at the right place at the right time. You have to have the right people advocating for you. So there's a lot that goes into it, for sure. And so this was now during the pandemic. It was like June of 2020, I guess.
Okay.
My deal was coming up, and we were talking about renegotiating, and I think everyone's general feeling was that we wanted to continue working together. I wanted to stay, they wanted to keep me, but where is there an opportunity to grow?
So you
And
feel like you
Geffen,
kind of hit a ceiling at Interscope,
a little
in
bit,
a
yeah.
glass ceiling a little bit.
And I loved what I was doing. I mean, we were on a hot streak, like it was great. But there was just that conversations on what else I could do. At the time, yeah, it was like June of the pandemic. Everyone's working from home. No one was supposed to be meeting in person, but I had to have some like secret in-person meetings to talk about stuff, And Geffen had been around, obviously. Just prior, Neil Jacobson had been running Geffen, and he decided to leave. And so there was a new wave of, we want Geffen to continue being an active label, but like, how are we going to position it now? So they had brought over Lee LaRue. He was at Warner at the time. He came over to Geffen,
Mm-hmm.
and they were really focused on building the new iteration of Geffen. So they said, well, what if you went over to Geffen and were just, the executive vice president of the label, and you work with Lee and you try to, build up this new version of Geffen. I said, oh, that's interesting, because my passions at that time kind of had shifted, and I'll always love marketing. It'll be the backbone of kind of what I do, but I really had a passion for operations at that point, and how things worked, and hiring the right people and giving the right people opportunities. That kind of became what I was interested in. So this was kind of the perfect fit.
And we'll be right back. Ready to launch your podcast? Merrick Studios offers comprehensive services, from concept development and seamless production to strategic marketing and monetization. Let your story take the mic. Visit merrickcreative.com/studios and let's get to work.
Master the art of lyricism with Pendulum Ink, the first school for rap. Learn elite techniques through immersive lessons, real-world exercises, and guidance from hip-hop icons. This is where MCs sharpen their skills and glow boldly on the mic. Ready to level up? Visit pendulumink.com and start your journey today.
And now, back to our show.
I ended up going over to Geffen, which is part of Interscope, right? It's all the same umbrella. And when I got there, like I said, Lee was there. And then there was, I think, like 3 or 4 other people. There was, shout out to Los, who was doing promotion, Dave Anderson, who was head of streaming, and Erica, who was Lee's assistant. So there was like 5 of us.
Wow.
And that was it. And It was like, okay, like build the staff in the pandemic, right? So, one of the things that I'm the most proud of is, in the short time that I was at Geffen, which was probably about 2.5 years, we really built a staff from about 5 people to almost 25 people, probably 22 people during the pandemic. And we had some successes. I mean, obviously Olivia is the biggest one, to date, but we had some other big wins with Yeet and a few other signings. So
wait, okay, I don't want to forget, but I got a bigger question. But Yeet, he intrigues me so much, like how he's not really seen, but he's this massive artist. Like how did that? Who brought him in? Like, how did that happen? Because I'm not really up on like the history of him, but like, how did that happen?
So few people brought him in terms of like brought him to the attention of the label. Ultimately, he ended up signing with Zach Bia and his label, who had a venture with Geffen.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, the whole kind of being mysterious and wearing the balaclavas and stuff. I mean, that's him, I think that's organically him. No, to my knowledge, nobody kind of made that a thing. He was doing that from the beginning.
Yeah, he's dope. But I got a bigger question. I wanted to ask you, so being this white woman, head of urban, how did I guess I don't know how to phrase it, but how did that work? Like, was it pushback from some people? Was it cool? Like, how did that work when people see you and you're like, you're the head of the black music marketing or whatever, how did that work?
So I'm not naive to know that would be a thing for some people. And before I accepted the job, some of us had that conversation, and I wanted to make sure that myself and senior management were on the same page with this being the right decision. Ultimately, we decided that it was the right decision. And I felt like a lot of people who knew my history and kind of what I had done up until that point, my intentions and my integrity, I feel like they got it, and there was definitely no issues. I think, for some other people that maybe didn't know the context or just didn't care about the context, there were some people I'm sure that felt a certain way, but I think ultimately I'm really proud of the work that I did with the department.
You did great work. You did an amazing job.
Not only like the artists that we released, but just the infrastructure within the department, and, ultimately later on, some really key hires that I made. And so I look back at that time. I'm really, really proud of it. I can't control how other people feel, and I just know that my intentions were genuine and honest. So, but yeah, it wasn't the easiest, but it was a great time.
Yeah. I always wondered that, because it's just, people you said, you can't control what people think, and people have preconceived notions, and who are you and how you know the culture
Yep.
and but I mean, me knowing you, I know you were real. It wasn't just like got put in there because you're the cute white girl. It's like, nah, she knows what she's doing, like for real. So I knew it would work out. But tell me a little bit about Olivia Rodrigo. How did that happen? And like, she's like a global superstar now, but like, tell me about the process of bringing her in and what your thought process was going into marketing her. I know she had the big driver's license record. She came in with that, correct? That was already, was that on like on her? Oh no, am I wrong?
I don't know. So she got signed. So John Janik and Sam Reback and Matt Morris, they brought her in. I believe she recorded driver's license like post signing, I think.
Okay.
With Dan Nigro. But Olivia is the dream scenario where we took our time setting that project up. I feel like a lot of projects nowadays, because of a variety of reasons, we're just rushing things out the door. But with Olivia, we took a lot of time. So she had recorded the record, and in October of that year, we started talking about the video and playing the song for partners and really setting it up so that come January, we could put it out.
Okay.
So a lot of creative direction went into that. A lot of thought went into that. And we took at least 3 to 4 months setting that up. And then in January, we dropped it. And I think everyone believed in the song. Everyone knew what it could be and how great it was. But similar to Blurred Lines in a way, I don't think we knew just how massive it was going to be, like out the gate. But yeah, I mean, it was an amazing, amazing record for her.
So I want to spend a little time on that before you move on. I want people to kind of understand when you're marketing a new artist like that who has this big record, like what are certain things that you would do as a marketer to be successful? Obviously, it's like, oh, you call Spotify, blah, blah, blah. But I know there's a lot of steps in the process. You don't have to go through our whole marketing plan because we ain't got it all day. But like, just tell me, but just kind of tell me a couple of things so that people can kind of understand what a marketing person does at a label to get a big record.
Well, in the case of Olivia, she already had a profile, from being on High School Musical. So we wanted to position her as her own artist, as Olivia, not as her character on TV. So yeah, there was the mechanics of it, getting the record done, getting cover art, doing photos that really show who she is. Kind of getting all the pieces of the project together, but then really getting people to buy into it. So, she herself, showed up again. This was, I still believe, during the pandemic. So she was on Zooms with, the Apple, Spotify's of the world, playing them not only just driver's license, but some of the other music that had already been done. And then teeing up, okay, are we going to release the song and the video at the same time? Yes. Where are we going to release the video? Is she going to participate in it? Is she going to do a YouTube watch party where she engages with fans? She was totally down to do that. She actually, I've spoke about this before, that kind of like 48-hour window, I genuinely don't remember how she slept because she put in the time of talking to all of the territories. Because, when a song comes out, it comes out in certain countries first and then here. And so she was doing fan interaction with different fans in different countries from like Thursday through Friday night. So it was all mapped out, but you're lucky when you get an artist who wants to do that much engagement and that much work,
Who really wants to go hard. Did she have a lot of ideas herself, or was it more like you guys kind of showing her how this works?
No, a lot of it came from her. She had a real vision. She does have a real vision as an artist, but there was definitely a strong creative team around her to help bring her ideas to fruition. And those creative folks are still with her to this day. So it's working,
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure, I know it happens, but like an Olivia or a Taylor Swift, I mean, these are massive artists, but, or Billy or even like a Charlie XCX, like I see so much fan interaction with them all the time. It's like, oh, they post this or they post that or they get on live or whatever. And I don't know if I see enough of that on the Black side. Like I want to see it more because obviously that's what's driving everything is and then the fans feel like they got a piece of you in a good way. Like, you know, they're kind of supporting you and they're like, oh, she's my girl. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or like she did a live and she answered my question. Or that stuff is really valuable. And I want to see more artists do that, especially now because there's so many distractions.
Yeah.
There's so many things going on. If you can lock in with your fans, you have to, because they can easily be just go that way, you know, to something else, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think we went through a phase where I think this phase is kind of maybe on its way out, but where being mysterious or like kind of unattainable was cool. Not posting as much, it was cool. A lot of artists felt like if you did those things, it was corny. And look, there was a lot of that too, like back in the day. I mean, we worked artists, granted social media wasn't a thing back then, but we worked artists who, you know, you only saw them if they were doing a show. Like otherwise there was no part of them. So I agree with you. I think when an artist really connects with their fans, they have the ability to have longer staying power.
Yes.
But we're also in a very microwavable time where like you have some artists who take their time, roll things out properly, I say, you know, with a timeline and with marketing ideas. Other artists are just so excited to get their music out that like they record on a Friday, they want it out in 2 weeks.
You know, or less.
Yeah.
They want it out that Monday.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, why can't I put it out Monday? It's like, bro, it's not even mixed. What are you talking about? No, just put it out, you know?
Yeah.
So when did you leave Geffen?
I left Geffen in January of 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
You started up your own company in B.
Yeah.
So tell me about that. And what the process was to start, and what does that name mean as well?
Okay. So I'll start with the name. So I came up with 81B because I was born in 81. Tell my age, B for my last name, but it also, the sound of it kind of made me think of like an apartment number in New York. And that
I swear to God, when I read that, I was like, this her apartment number in Lennox Terrace.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought.
So it kind of, even though like it represents me as a person, it brought me back to like New York, which is where I got started in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the name came about. But when I left Geffen, I had been working on a lot of joint ventures. I mean, Interscope in general, Interscope and Geffen do a lot of joint venture deals. A lot of labels do now, but I feel like they really were at the forefront of doing that.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the same questions and a lot of just like the same daily challenges would come up with a lot of our ventures, being, you know, they're great creatively. They've got the artists. They know how to find records. You know, they move culture. They're doing the cool shit. But when it came to kind of the operations, the budgets, the mechanics of, you know, who to hire, a lot of those questions would come up regularly. And I was like, you know, there's a real need for these cool indie companies to have a little bit of structural help. So my initial intention when I left was, let me talk to all of the joint ventures I've ever worked with, see who wants some operational help, and I'll go work with one of them. And I had a bunch of conversations with everybody. My idea in general, you know, same reaction from everyone. They loved it. We need you, all the things. But there just didn't end up being a fit for me in-house with a particular person or a particular company. So I was like, okay, how do I do the same thing, but in a way that's manageable for myself and for everyone? And I said, I'll start my own business, which, by the way, never had a desire to do. I was happy being a good corporate citizen, getting my 401k.
Yeah.
Like I
healthcare.
had no desire. Healthcare.
You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of perks that come with being a high up in the corporate world. You get your corporate card, your travel's paid for. Like, you know, it ain't bad. You know,
it's not bad.
Nice.
Yeah. But then, you know, I found myself in the position where I was like, okay, I'll start my own business, you know? So what I ended up doing was starting 81B and offering services to initially creative companies who want operational help. So again, my target market for my company was going to be all these indie labels. It still is, but ironically, my first partner was Nickelodeon.
Wow.
Which came about because my friend Tab, who I'm sure you know Tab, and
Yeah.
Tab was like, I know someone. He puts me in touch with Tim Weatherspoon. Tim was doing stuff at Nickelodeon, and he's like, yeah, we could use you. So in essence, I partnered with Nickelodeon to help them build a bit of a temporary team just to help release some records that they have.
Wow.
And then I started, I kind of went back to one of the partners I had at Geffen, which was Rebel Music. Shout out to Jay and Stan in Miami. They had left Geffen, and they brought their venture to Gamma with Larry Jackson.
Yeah, Larry's a good dude. So who do they have on Rebel Music? Who's their artist?
Well, Sexy Red's kind of their marquee artist, right?
Oh,
but they've got Jay and Stan have really kind of over the years just made a great name for themselves in the sense that even if they don't get a signing, they're in the conversation of every kind of hot signing that there is. So they brought me in kind of in a different function because they do have a staff, just to help them operationally with some of their businesses in the venture with Gamma. And I've got a few other things in the pipeline for this year. So it's really just kind of helping on the business side, and helping creatives do what they do best, which is create. And then I can kind of help them with what I call the boring stuff.
No, that's a really good. I've never even thought about that. That's a really good idea because, like you said, these ventures, like you said, they got the cool acts and they know how to make the records, right?
Yeah.
They definitely know how to make the records, and a lot of times know how to kind of, at least start marketing them and style them and kind of get, give you that allure.
Yeah.
But you said, but the nuts and bolts of, I always tell people the same thing. There were, the two women at Jive back then, Laurel Dan, who was on the Tribe album, passed away, and Stephanie Tudor. They would air on our admin ladies.
Yeah.
And I always say they really taught me to do A&R.
Yeah,
because it's all the other stuff. It ain't just being in the studio. No. It's all the other stuff that's kind of, boring and, but it has to get done, budgets and stuff like that. So it's interesting. You're kind of doing the same thing. You're doing the, I don't know if I'd say call it the dirty work, but the stuff that has to be done for these ventures and the product to come out. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. Thanks.
You really onto something with that.
Thanks.
No, that's good. That's good. Sexy Red. Wow. I actually like Sexy Red.
Yeah.
I get a lot of shit for it.
Yeah.
I like the Bruno record. I was
going to ask if you like the Bruno record. Yeah.
I get a lot. I'm like, bro, that record's a smash. You're going to hate it. But I think people don't, for whatever reason, they're not. Some people, that's because a lot of people obviously are because she's a big artist, but some people aren't connecting to her. So anything she does, they're like, I'm like, yo, that Bruno record is a smash, in my opinion. The video is fire, again, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And, I like her. I like her. I like Sexy Red. So congratulations to you and her.
Yeah.
Before we go, I have a couple questions that I ask everybody.
Okay.
In general. So tell me your 3 favorite artists and why they're your favorites.
Oh my God, that's impossible. That's impossible.
You know what, Nicole? Because we're cool, I'll give you 5. Which is still hard, but it's not 3.
My God.
And of any genre, anything, young, old, it doesn't matter.
Our favorite artists is really hard because I could list so many. I'll just go with what comes to top of mind. So coming up, Anita Baker for sure. My mom listened to a lot of Anita Baker, and
Wow.
I could just drive and listen to Anita Baker albums. That's one.
Another guest said her too.
Yeah. I would probably say the same thing for Sade. But in terms of more current,
it could be anything you can do with 3 old. It's on you. It's on you. I
will always listen to a Chris Brown bop. Chris Brown will play in my car all the time.
Yep.
Ooh, this is so hard. I mean, favorites. Ooh. I mean, I know that it's like not interchangeable, but just the Tupac Biggie era, I could listen, again, I can listen to all day.
Okay.
I'm kind of gauging this by like things I could re-listen to, because I don't re-listen to a lot of music now. I'll listen to something once and be like, okay, that was cool, You
move on, yeah. One more. Give me one more.
Charlie Wilson. Easy. Charlie Wilson. Because I could listen to his music all the time, and he puts on an amazing show.
Incredible.
If you have not seen a Charlie show, you need to go see it.
a guy who's like in his 70s. He's jumping
Yeah.
around like he's 22 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you work that project of Jive? The first name Charlie, last name Wilson? Did you work that one?
I did not, but quick story. I got to meet Charlie for the first time when Blaine, shout out to Blaine, was going to get him to do some radio liners, and he had to go over to his hotel and be like, can you just knock these out? And he asked me to go with him, and I was like, great. And so I got to meet Charlie and his wife for the first time at that point, and I was like, this guy's amazing.
He's super cool. He's super cool. He's really like, he's just real open and funny and not like, you know, he's not like an asshole, like, you know. He's really cool. Okay. Now I say songs, not artists, because I don't want to, you know, because artists are too hard to pick because they're all like our babies. Or whatever. Give me three favorite songs you worked on and why.
Ooh, okay. Well, I guess Blurred Lines would be one of them. And the reason is because, you know, I just look back at the magic of that song in the sense of, I remember when we released it, nobody kind of knew, like, is it pop? Is it urban? Is it rhythm? What is it? And then it ended up going #1 at every format, global success. Just a really great song to work. So I'd say Blurred Lines. I mean, I guess I have to say Driver's License, right? Okay. Because that too was just an incredible ride and really, really like thought through, like the marketing and the promotion and just everything that we did in that period. Also, again, partially during the pandemic. Was just like was really memorable, I guess. And then I'll say Shrem. I'll say Black Beatles.
Beatles. So wait, who came up with the Frozen concept with the video?
Honestly, if I recall correctly, that was on the internet. Like that was like I forget the guy's name, and man, I'm gonna kick myself for forgetting the name of this person. But it started,
and it just blew up. Like I remember that was like you had everybody like Jerry Jones doing it on his plane and like that was a dope concept. That was a dope. Now, did you know if Paul McCartney or Ringo did ever hear that record? Or did they not comment on it?
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I know because Paul McCartney did a
That's right, he did a Frozen.
Did a thing, yeah.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. He did do a Frozen joint. That's right. And the last thing I wanted to ask you was, and you kind of already answered it, I think, but tell me a concert that kind of changed. You mentioned the BBD, but is there another concert or show you went to where you were like, oh my God, like this is amazing?
Yes.
I'm sure several, but just give me one.
I mean, just in terms of the performances, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so performance-wise, Pink, hands down, always puts a great show. I mean, she's flying in the air, doing all sorts of things, singing. She puts on a great show. Obviously, I said Charlie already. What else? I mean, I think I went to, remember when, this must have been, I don't know what year this was. This was in like, when Bad Boy did their tour.
Yeah.
But like, this was like recent, like in the last like 8 years.
The reunion tour.
The reunion tour. I think I went to like 3 of those shows. I think I did like New York, Atlanta, and LA because it like represented a moment in time with all the artists that were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really great show.
I don't think I actually didn't make that show for whatever reason. I didn't heard it was amazing, but I never made it. I don't think I made those shows. Anyway.
And you know what? Another show too. So I've been very lucky to have gone to a lot of J. Cole shows. It's just him on stage, and he can carry like Madison Square Garden, like they're your biggest arenas and stadiums. He can carry just him on a stage. You know, he'll have some backdrops and whatever, but it's kind of remarkable because I feel like a lot of artists, you know, they need all the bells and whistles to going around them to put on a good show.
Pyro and dancers.
Yeah. He's just really good live.
So tell me, before we wrap, tell me if you can any upcoming plans for B. What's I mean, you have to name the upcoming clients. What's your vision for growing the company?
So I do want to grow it in terms of like I want to build out a small team and really be able to kind of give back in many ways. One, mentorship. Like if I want to bring some people in, some young, hungry kids that I can mentor and kind of give them part of this business in a way. And I also just want to help more creatives. I think it's amazing. Like I feel like I have a little bit of a creative in me in terms of the marketing side, but like there are people that are just so wildly creative, artistic, talented that I would love to help with my skill set. So yeah, growing the company a little bit and just working with more creatives.
Good. You'll
Yeah,
do
yeah.
it. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be on the top whatever list, the 100 top 100 of 100 and all that type of stuff. You're gonna be.
We'll see.
You're
I
gonna
don't
be
know.
a big mogul.
I don't know.
So you're staying in LA. You're not ever moving back east.
I wouldn't say that. I am in LA for now, for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm in LA forever.
Okay. Would you move east, or you wouldn't? You don't even know where you would go next.
I don't know. I don't know. There's not another city like calling my name right now.
I got you.
But I don't think I'm in LA forever. I mean, things are different now. I have a son and I would love to be closer to family, but
I bet. Yeah. How are you doing with the fires out there?
Thankfully we're okay. Our neighborhood, other than kind of poor air quality during that time, didn't get hit by the fires, so we were okay, thankfully.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
yeah.
I'm glad. Well, that's it, man. Thank you for this.
Thank you. This is great. I love talking about kind of back in the day and in these stories. I love it.
Yeah, like I think I told you we talked, offline. I was like, there's no place that I know of for record executives.
Yeah.
To tell their stories and their journeys. So I wanted to give other executives a spot to talk and tell, because people need to know who you are.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciated it.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
Yeah. All right. Sexy B. I'll talk to you later. You can catch Mixed and Mastered on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button, leave a review, and tell a friend. I'm your host, Jeffrey Sledge. Mixed and Mastered is produced and distributed by Merrick Studios.